That'll be good. And then
Okay,
I promise you we'll get done on time. Okay, go ahead. So,
it's recording.
thank you. Um, so today's presentation is on college student trauma and resilience. Moving our perspective of our students from what's wrong with that kid to what happened to that kid and how can we help. And that might not make sense right now, but that will make sense in a little bit. So, as you are aware, many community college students have experienced more than their share of life's challenges, beginning when they were young children. And new brain research demonstrates that broad, long term, and profoundly negative impacts of adverse childhood experiences can reach way into adulthood. So, the research also developed a method of quantifying these adverse childhood experiences, otherwise known as ACEs, which includes experiences such as childhood physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, parental abandonment, domestic violence in the household, substance abuse in the household, mental illness, or criminality in the household. And in general, they find that the more of these adverse experiences that a children has in their background, the higher their risk for a number of negative outcomes, not just through childhood, but well into adulthood. Um, so, for instance, an adult who has experienced significant childhood traumas is 15 times more likely to attempt suicide than somebody who has no childhood traumas in their background. They're also 4 times more likely to become an alcoholic, 3 times more likely to experience depression, and far more likely to experience serious behavioral and learning problems compared with somebody who had none of these traumas. If you have 6 of these traumas in your background, on average, you experience a 20-year shorter life expectancy, which is pretty startling. And, also higher risk of cancer and asthma and COPD and heart disease and any other number of medical and emotional issues. So let's learn a little bit about this and let's learn about what we can do about it, because the key is new research also shows there are ways that we can help our students overcome these things and overcome them ourselves, because there are a good many of us, faculty and staff, who have experienced these things as well. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is, this is tough stuff to deal with. And if at any point during the presentation you feel the need to step out or take a break based on the material, please feel free to do so. You can use your discretion of whether to rejoin us or not, whatever feels right to you. And you are always welcome to reach out to me afterwards by phone, by email, if you'd like to chat about this. And if it's really upsetting you and you just want somebody to kind of bounce some things, or you just want somebody to talk with about these things. Okay. Um, so chronic childhood trauma are things like being regularly slapped or punched, constantly belittled and berated, living with a parent who is alcoholic or depressed, and that releases a constant flood of stress hormones called cortisol that damage the structure and function of a child's developing brain. And there is a direct link between childhood traumas and adult onset of chronic diseases, and the more adverse childhood experiences result in a higher risk of medical, mental, and social problems. So now we're going to play a 2-minute video clip. And Jamie is our angel. Jamie McLeod taught me how to do this morning. It took over an hour because I'm a slow learner. So let's see. Share content, share application or screen, Chrome tab, share audio, pick the tab. Aha. Think I'm going to do it right this time, Jamie. Okay, just 2 minutes.
We all like to think of childhood as this time of joy and innocence. But
I mean, for many of us, it's just not true.
If you grow up in these type of situations, it's not something you talk about. I know I did.
The first thing that we found is that adverse childhood experiences are common.
Kids are young, they don't know what's going on, they won't remember anyway. Well, the child may not remember, but the body remembers.
There was this incredible gee whiz effect. You mean adverse childhood experiences cause heart disease and lung disease and liver and cancer?
Exposure to trauma affects children's developing brains. The impact is on your behavior, it's on your heart, it's on your DNA. Like, how do you deal with all that?
I don't reach out because I'm not used to that.
We have a whole new body of knowledge now that could open up what we have up till now been seen as intractable, unsolvable problems.
No child should be punched or kicked. No child should be punched or kicked.
If you can get the science into the hands of the general population, they will invent very wise actions.
Do you feel like any of the interventions have been making a difference?
They made all the difference in the world.
It's there, it's possible, and a defeatist attitude is completely disconnected from what 21st century science is telling us. And we should be going after that like a bear.
Okay, so that is the trailer for a film called Resilience, the Biology of Stress and the Science of Hope. And we can jump back to the PowerPoint, please, Jamie. And we own a copy of this film at CCCC on DVD. I have it in my office and I loan it out to all different departments. People who are interested, you're welcome to borrow it or show it to a group if you'd like. But something I forgot to mention the last hour, we've screened this for several times for faculty and staff a couple of years ago at CCCC, and it was when Dr. Marchant was still here. And you know who is in this film is Kamala Harris, which I thought was really interesting. At the time, I didn't recognize her. I'd never seen her before. It was before the presidential election even started, or even the primaries. And Dr. Marchant leaned over to me and he said, "Do you know who that is? That's an up-and-coming star in the Democratic Party." And that the lovely black physician, black pediatrician you see in there is now the Surgeon General of the state of California. So it's nice to have support for these types of programs at high levels in government. So again, just let me know if you'd like to borrow the rest of that film. It's only an hour long. It's a beautiful documentary. So again, there's the 10 ACEs in the orange boxes. The initial study that those two gentlemen on the film, Felipe and Anda, did, they had over 17,300 adult participants, and they rated them based on how many of these things they had experienced prior to the age of 18. And what did they find? They found that ACEs and trauma are widespread. And again, compared to people with no ACEs, people with 4 or more ACEs, you can see there the statistics. But let's jump down to that last one in red. Somebody with 4 or more ACEs is 32 times more likely to exhibit learning and behavioral difficulties. 32 times. So if you had a group with 0 ACEs and one person had a learning disability, and you had another group and they all had 4 or more ACEs, you would expect 32 of those students to have learning disabilities. That is just huge, a huge, huge, huge finding. Okay, and the original ACE study, most of those participants were white college educated, middle class, or affluent. So this is not just something that happens in lower socioeconomic areas. Okay, now I'm going to play you a second clip for a little bit more about ACEs. Okay, I'm getting good at this, Jamie, thanks to your excellent instruction. Okay, oh, yeah. Bonus. Okay. Nope. That's the wrong one. It's this next. It's this other one. Okay. There we go.
What does your parents' divorce have to do with your risk for heart disease? If your mother had a drinking problem when you were growing up, are you more likely to suffer from depression as an adult? Here's what you should know about ACEs. ACEs stand for Adverse Childhood Experiences, extremely stressful events that can happen to a child growing up. Some experiences are so stressful that they can alter brain development, as well as the immune system, increasing the risk of lifelong health and social problems in adulthood. The term comes from the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, landmark research that shed new light on the root cause of everything from stroke and liver disease to substance abuse and mental illness. In the late 1990s, an epidemiologist from the Centers for Disease Control and a preventive medicine doctor at Kaiser Permanente set out to understand the association between childhood experience and lifelong health. They asked over 17,000 people in the Kaiser Health Plan in San Diego about their health history, as well as difficult questions about their experiences growing up. Anda and Felitti tallied up 10 different kinds of adversity in this largely middle-class and college-educated population. They were stunned to see how common ACEs were. 21% of all respondents were sexually abused as children. 19% grew up with someone who suffered mental illness. 28% had been physically abused. And 2 out of 3 respondents had experienced at least one ACE. The researchers next looked at how someone's ACE score, or the number of adversities they experienced, related to a wide array of serious health and social problems. They saw that the more ACEs someone had, the greater their risk for poor outcomes compared with someone with no ACEs. Someone with an ACE score of 4 had twice the risk of heart disease and cancer. Someone with an ACE score of 5 had an 8 times greater chance of being an alcoholic. And those with an ACE score of 6 or more, on average, died 20 years earlier. With every major problem they looked at in the ACE study, the risk went up for each additional adverse experience in childhood. As Dr. Robert Anda says, what's predictable is preventable. It's important to remember that ACEs are not destiny. ACEs are a tool for understanding the health of a population as a whole. For individuals, an ACE score can be a tool for understanding their own risk for health and social problems, and empower them to make changes for themselves and their children. ACEs tend to get passed down from generation to generation and are common across all income levels, races, and cultures. But increasingly, people of all different professions and backgrounds are coming together to discuss how ACEs affect their communities. They're finding new ways to treat and prevent ACEs. Many doctors are starting to screen their patients for ACEs as part of their medical history. More schools are becoming trauma-informed, considering the source of problem behavior when disciplining their students, instead of immediately suspending or expelling them. To learn more about interrupting the cycle of adversity and improving health and well-being for the next generation, please visit kpjrfilms.co.
Okay, and again, we do have that film. And when we screened this for faculty and staff, we did a little ACE quiz among them. And we found out that the median ACE score among faculty and staff who viewed this film was a 4. So we have a lot of colleagues who had these experiences in their own childhood, including myself. And my ACE score is a 6. And I have been working for decades to address the impact of those adverse childhood experiences, and certainly something that can be done. But it was interesting, again, we took the ACE quiz voluntarily, people could volunteer. And Dr. Martin, at that time, he took it too, and he was stunned, and he said, I had 0, my ACE score is 0, and I assumed everybody else in that room had 0 too. I can't believe how many people on our faculty and staff have suffered, you know, as children. And, you know, he was just really, 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 really surprised. So it's not just our students, it's our colleagues and maybe even ourselves too. So let's talk a little bit about how toxic stress affects learning. So when you don't have healthy relationships, the students or anybody's brain is overwhelmed with cortisol, or children, okay, or adults, overwhelmed with cortisol, and that wires the brain for fight or flight. It's just wired for survival. The stress hormone, the cortisol, inhibits healthy brain growth, and the brain stays in a sense of high alert at all times. And then the toxic environment, the people develop this fight, flight, or freeze brain. Okay, it's one of those things. That's how you react to things. And they sometimes can have difficulty with executive functioning, with logic, with reasoning, concentration, self-control, and social interactions. You know, and I'm going to make this PowerPoint available to you. I have more material in here that we can cover in detail, but that's on purpose so that you can learn more about this later if you're really interested in it. So these are just a little drawing of some of the types of parts of the brain, and you see the frontal lobe here is where a lot of problems take place. Problem solving, emotional traits, reasoning, speaking, and voluntary motor activity. Okay, you look at the picture of the brain at the top here, and this picture divides the brain into 3 levels. The base level is, sometimes it's nicknamed the reptilian brain, the lizard brain, and that part of the brain is all just about survival. It's about instinct and survival, and it's an important part of the brain. I mean, we all need that. If we're walking in the woods and we hear a rustle, we better quickly look and assess whether that is a coyote or a bear, or it's just the wind blowing. So it helps us to be aware. But we don't want this reptilian brain to be in control of us, right? We really want the part of the brain that governs us to be the top part, the neocortex, the rational or the thinking brain. And then another part in the middle is the limbic brain, where we develop emotions and feelings. So 3 levels. The base level is that lizard or reptilian brain, then we have the limbic brain, and then we have the higher functioning rational and thinking brain. And you can see here it's the amygdala, that's the part of the reptile brain. can create things like reduced pain tolerance, anxiety, an exaggeration of startle responses, insomnia, fatigue, dissociation, so disconnection. Okay, and again, you see this picture, the 3 levels, right? The bottom level, the reptile level, survival state. Am I safe? The middle level, emotional state. Am I loved? The top level, executive state. What can I learn from this? So we'd really like to have all 3 of those levels working together, but sort of have the top brain in charge. And that just can't happen for a lot of people who've lived their lives and developed, as their brains developed as children, in these situations of toxic stress. Okay? Love this quote by Henry Ford at the bottom. If you think you can do a thing, or you think you can't do a thing, you're right. Because whatever you think, it's gonna be a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's really important, to learn a little bit about that. Again, fight, flight, or freeze. What does it look like? Inability to focus, withdrawal, wariness, suspicion, difficulty trusting, challenges with reasoning and decision making, high anxiety, insecurity, fearfulness, pain, avoidant behavior, anger, frustration, inability to sit still, easily confused, easily overwhelmed, easily distracted, explosive behavior, aggressiveness, and acute sensitivity to negative body language. And again, that's coming from that reptile brain, right? You see the picture again. It's coming from the bottom. That's because we weren't able to fully develop our primate brain, or our top cortex, or frontal cortex. Here's another way at the bottom people distinguish them. The lizard brain, the mouse brain, and the monkey brain. The monkey brain is the top one, right? So the lizard brain focusing on avoiding harm. And if you have that lizard brain in control, you're going to experience all these, or a student, if their lizard brain is in control, they're going to experience all or many of these expressions of what fight, flight, or freeze looks like. And so the idea is we want to all get to our primate brain. Okay. What does healthy versus unhealthy look like? Same kind of thing. Unhealthy, you get anger, frustration, stress, thinking from an emotional platform, and irrationality, struggling with memory and focus, inability to process things sequentially. Rewards don't make sense. You only understand the present moment because you're worried about survival, and you're being controlled by the bottom up, lower amygdala, and then the top down healthy brain has the ability to be kind and compassionate, to think rationally, to show empathy, understanding, self-awareness, has the ability to be imaginative, to think logically, to have a sense of curiosity because it's safe to feel curious, process language, a sense of time, and use higher order thinking skills. So that's a big difference between being governed by that lizard brain versus being governed by that brain. So do we see this in our students? Again, we screened this movie, the 1-hour documentary, for whoever wanted to come, faculty. We did it several times. Median A score among the faculty and staff was a 4, and they said, I saw the faces of my students in that film. This issue affects all of us. And then they said, how do I resolve my own triggers from my own past trauma in order to be able to best help my students? A lot of people were wondering that. That's a great question. But we have a big opportunity to make an impact, and they could see that. Those are some of the comments from the faculty and staff. Not just at CCCC, though. College students across the country find college to be stressful and that they need assistance building stress management, healthy coping skills. About 35% of incoming students at college with a diagnosed mental health disorder nationwide. Only 50% of them with a diagnosable mental health issue. Just the other 15% haven't been diagnosed yet. ACEs, the trauma, make these students way more vulnerable to this stress. So we're seeing, big issues there in around the country. We asked our own students. We added a question to our enrolled student survey, and we asked students to share the major challenges that they had faced while they were at CCCC. We had a big long list. They could choose as many as they wanted, and they could add their own. We had almost 900 students respond to this question. Look at what they told us. 53% stressed out, 46% overwhelmed, 42% anxiety, 26% sleep problem, 23% depressed or sense of hopelessness, 9% other mental health issues. 5 out of the top 10 top challenges that our CCCC students experience have to do with stress, anxiety, and other mental health issues. I mean, that's profound in my view. It's just profound. And they could choose as many as they wanted. This particular chart, we asked this 3 years in a row, and it's very much the same year to year. Only this year, this is last chart. This year, the stress and anxiety are even higher than juggling work and school. So stress moved up to number 1 this year, as you can imagine, with the pandemic, all the other things that we're facing right now. These students that are experiencing challenges are much more likely to drop out, but we can increase retention and graduation rate and FTE and funding to stabilize our college, our communities, our workforce by addressing this. It's a big, 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 big issue. CCCC students, this year we also asked them another question, a follow-up question, and asked them, what would be the #1 resource that we could provide to you as a student to help you overcome your challenges? What do you need from us that we're not already providing? We provide tutoring, and we provide lots of services. And the overwhelming #1 response was mental health support. 4 times as many students answered mental health support than anything else on the survey. And we're getting there. We now have a student assistance program where any student can receive short-term free video chat counseling sessions with a licensed therapist, a video chat from their home or wherever. And we're also developing several other external resources and internal resources that will be free of charge for them too. If you know a student that needs some mental health support, the Student Assistance Plan, or SAP, you can find it on the CC Cares webpage from our CCCC website. Scroll down. There's even a little minute video that explains what it is and what it will provide for them. So people are becoming familiar with this resource. I think it's important that all of us who are faculty and staff at the college know what we have to offer, because it's free to them and they really, really need it. You know, we're just thinking in terms of knowing that we offer that. So, and we're working on offering things too. But, you know, okay, this has been pretty much of a downer so far, but there's hope for the future, because scientists have also recently discovered that the brain has neuroplasticity, which means that the human brain is able to change and rewire itself and form new connections throughout a person's life. Scientists used to think that that only happened during childhood, and that when childhood was over, basically that brain was like cement and you couldn't change it. But now they know that there is hope that we can do some mitigation for that damage and help people rewire their brains to form new connections throughout their lives. It's good to know. So thinking about change, what do we need to do? How can we be more helpful to students? And we need to ask ourselves, should we pick students? And are students weak? Are they snowflakes? Do they need more grit? Did we just push them harder? But criticizing students is not going to help cope and adjust. It's just going to make the problem worse. But providing them with solutions can help. We still want to hold them accountable for sure, but criticizing them is not going to help. And if you think about the title for this session, see, I have it on this slide. That's where that comes in. We want to shift our perspective from looking at a problem student and thinking like, what a lazy kid. Oh, that's a bad kid. What's wrong with that kid? Instead to thinking like, that's a hurting kid, right? That student must have been through some really tough stuff. What happened to that kid, and how can we help that kid? Because a lot of those behaviors that we're sort of trained to judge and think and judge, oh, that's a bad kid. This is a kid, that's a bad kid. That's not the case. These behaviors are coming from impact to the brain that they experienced in childhood, but we can help them. I like the quote from Abraham Maslow, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem with a nail. So we need to kind of build our toolkit a little bit. And we asked 457 students to describe in one word ECCC employee who best helped them progress towards their goal. Describe it in one word. And here's what they told us. The larger the word, the more students said that's what they needed, right? So our students have told us, here's what we need from you, CCCC. We need you to be caring and kind and understanding and patient and honest and helpful, knowledgeable, motivated, and supportive and positive and encouraging and even loving. Here's what they told us. 457 of our students said, here's the person at CCCC helped me the most. Maybe it was you they were describing, right? We don't know. We told them, don't tell the name of the person, just describe that person in one word. And that's what they told us. So I think that's profound. I love this slide. I love that heart. I love that graphic. You've probably seen me show it before because, you know, any chance I get, I'm holding up that little heart saying, here's what our students need from us. Yay! So, okay, we're going to move on to part 2 of this presentation and talk about resilience. And now we know all these negative things that can impact students' brain development, impact their behavior, impact their learning, 32 times more likely to have a learning disability. So how do we help them develop resilience? To go from I can't to I can, right? Help them reflect on that. And now I'm going to show a little clip about resilience. I forgot this one the last time. Or I missed it. So go back to share application, Chrome tab, share audio. There we go. This should work. No, that's not it. There it is. Okay, what is resilience? Here we go.
I'll see you again today. Have a good weekend.
You too, Darren.
Dr. Scaldi, we're not seeing the video.
Are you kidding? Okay. 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 Let me go back here. Share application. Thank you for letting me know that, Alex. Chrome tab. Share audio. Try this one.
That's it.
How about now?
Yes.
Very sorry. See, Jamie taught me I
Resilience is
can
about
do it.
overcoming adversity. It's about how you think and how you view the world. When something bad happens to you, do you see it as a catastrophe or do you see it as an opportunity? Are you able to tell the difference between something that's a real tiger versus something that just feels like a tiger? Because stress is designed into our bodies so that we can deal with a tiger that's going to attack us, right? And the key is that you have to be able to tell the difference between something that can really chew your face off or just feels like it might. The resilience mindset can tell the difference between something real and something that only worries you. Unconditional
Love gives human beings the security that allows them to move forward and to take chances. That's the bottom line of being able to handle almost anything. I am loved, I am valued, and people know who I am inside. That allows people to thrive through good and bad times, and that's what resilience is.
Okay, back to the PowerPoint. So he talked about how important it was in order to build resilience for people to feel cared about and loved and in relationship. And sometimes our students' only chance for that is here at school, at our college. And we're the only hope to provide that stable adult relationship that can help them through that. So, resilience, it's a dynamic process. It's protective factors that we can all develop. It's accessible to anyone, and we can help our students develop it. It's the ability to bounce back from personal adverse conditions and community problems or loss, the power that moderates the effect of serious life challenges and provides hope and healing, and the quality that allows some people to be knocked down by life and come back stronger than ever. I love this African proverb, however long the night, the dawn will break. And doesn't it feel like with the pandemic that we have been through a long night? But yet we're starting to see hints that the dawn is going to break. So here's a nice slide that talks about some of the components of resilience: the sense of belonging, sense of control, coping skills, connection, character, and flexibility. And you can imagine that we can help with some of these things for our students. We can be the people that coach them and encourage them and provide that safe, caring environment. Okay, some protective factors that promote resilience: caring, supportive relationships. That's the number one thing. The safe environment. The student has to feel safe and supportive to be able to deactivate that reptile brain and kind of move up to that higher executive functioning level. They need to feel safe and supported. Challenging but obtainable expectations for success. Opportunities to belong, opportunities to have meaningful interactions with others and connection to community. And then internal factors: competence and efficient social skills, problem-solving skills, autonomy, sense of purpose, feelings of being effective, sense of being okay, and a vision of a better future. Now, I'm sure you can see that we can help encourage students to move in this direction. And I like the quote at the bottom here: if a student can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. You know, there's just some little differences that might make all the difference in the world. So these are some ways that we can all help to start leading on the mental health issue today. And we're not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm keeping an eye on the time. I know 3 o'clock we're going to be done. I don't want to keep anybody late on a Friday. But you can see, again, we'll share the PowerPoint later. But recognize their strengths and make sure they recognize their strengths. Acknowledge your own stress. Normalize that. Explain self-care to students, what they need to do to take care of themselves. Encourage positive affirmations, share restorative narratives, share campus health resources, mental health resources. Strength. So over the past 20 years, behavioral health research has found that individuals receive messages best when they first focus on their own personal strengths or values. So when they're about to face something really challenging, it's best for them to stop and first reflect on, I have strengths. I can get through this because I have these strengths and I have these values. And you can use this next slide. This next slide could be a handout or a poster, to remind students that they do have strength. I bet everybody would be able to find at least one or more strengths on here that would apply to themselves. And it helps them feel stronger when they reflect on that and remember that they do. Positive affirmation examples, also helpful. They can write it in their phone, they can repeat it, they could put it on a stone, they could put it on a little piece of paper and hang it on the wall. You know, things that will help them to to deflect the negative self-talk that they often have in their own brains. A lot of people have this little voice in their brain that's always saying, you know, you're not good enough, you can't do this, and so forth. So you've got to kind of counteract that. Stress management helps students to understand how to get out of their head, take a walk, focus on something other than the problems, listen to music, talk to a friend, identify their emotions, label them, use free resources to learn mindfulness. Holly Schofield is currently running classes for faculty and staff on deep breathing and mindfulness techniques, and I was in the first cohort. So far, everybody really, really loves it and finds that it helps because we're all under so much stress with this pandemic these days. Exercise is a benefit, hobbies, talking to a close friend, learning yoga, rhythmic activity, and developing some skills that help you cope. So sometimes we just need to be reminded of that. And so how do we practice in the face of trauma? I have that, you know, summarized at the top there. Really, kindness is magic. So take more time, be patient with them, be respectful to them, keep a respectful distance because sometimes they get triggered if you're too close. Use a sensitive tone of voice. Don't be aggressive or loud. You know, understand that they might not always catch on to every bit of your question the first time around. You may have to repeat it. Things like that. And restorative narratives, helping students to remember the stories of other people who've been knocked down and how they found their way back to triumph. Telling personal stories, helping them remember stories in their own lives, because in order to get to a college classroom, they've already had stories where in their own lives where they've been facing challenges or knocked down and they overcame those things. So helping them. There's lots of resources on the internet to help you use this in your classroom if you wanted to do that. So, you know, failure is part of life. It's not the end of the world. I love the saying, you've got to fail forward. Fail forward, right? That failing moves you forward. So don't fail downward, fail forward. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school varsity basketball team. Oh my goodness. Thank goodness he did not give up. You know, Oprah fired from her first news anchor job. Thank goodness she did not get up. She picked herself back up and dusted herself off and kept going. Lady Gaga dropped by her record label after just 3 months. Thank goodness that she kept trying. Simone Biles wasn't even raised by her parents. She was raised in foster homes and experienced lots of challenges and went on to become one of the best U.S. gymnastics in history. So that is an example. So, but really the most key critical thing that the research shows is the presence of a caring adult relationship. It's foundational, it's critical, it's life-changing in helping students who are impacted by trauma, helps them move from hopelessness to a sense of hope. And we at the college have the ability to help students change their life paths and help them gain that resilience that they need. So creating a trauma-informed school is not about teachers becoming therapists. I hear teachers worry about that. Well, I'm a teacher, I'm not a therapist, and I don't want to be a therapist. But it's about creating this environment that focuses on relationship, trust, and emotional safety. So I shared with the last group, I like to Google image search, you know, for things to put pictures in my presentations, and I couldn't find it. I was Googling caring teacher, caring teacher, caring teacher. I thought, I remember one. And see, so that's me when I was teaching in the back. That's me, and I was teaching electronics and physics and math. And I just love my students. I just adore them. I love them like a mother, and they knew it, and they loved me right back. And they felt safe, and they felt respected, and they just blossomed, and it was just beautiful. So what else can we do? Mainly build those relationships. And when working with these trauma-impacted students, we have to reach their hearts before we can reach their heads. Isn't that beautiful? I just love that. I also shared, I had a degree in mechanical engineering, and after working as an engineer, I went and taught at this community college physics and math. I was very successful, and I had no idea, like, why was this working so well for me? And I went to grad school and figured out it was, just because I really, really cared about them. And I wanted my students to look at themselves through my eyes because I believed in them, and I wanted to see themselves in that same way. And they did, and they stood taller, and they succeeded, and they blossomed, and it was just as beautiful. So this is something you can study later on if you want to pull this PowerPoint. 5 critical steps to implementing a trauma-informed school. Just talk about the first one. It's easy to take it personally if a student mouths off or, speaks aggressively or doesn't come to class or is always late or maybe curses at you, or it's easy to get defensive, right? But the mantra is, it's not about me, it's not about me, it's not about me. This stress is coming from outside of school. This student has been through something that doesn't have anything to do with me, so that we as instructors don't react to that, and escalate things and make things worse. That's hard to do. But it's part of that shift in mindset that's important. So we got to teach them that they are valued. So for some of these students with ACEs, the sense of belongingness and connection within a classroom setting are rare or have never happened before. And this is a picture of me with my last group of students in 2003 before I left Michigan. And those kids, so I wanted to create this environment where everyone respected each other and we had fun and we learned a lot too. They had labs on Wednesday. I brought them candy every Wednesday. They listened to, back in the day, it was their boom box, and they got to take turns picking what music they listened to. I would come around, and they would, by accident, different times, they would call me mom, and they would be embarrassed about that. And I was just so proud that sometimes they would accidentally call me mom, because I cared. I loved them like a mom. And I was in charge of all the technical programs back at this college in Michigan. And I had this big burly welding instructor who was 6'7" and just probably weighed 350 pounds. And he loved to come across in this, kind of grumpy, intimidating way, but deep down he was just this big teddy bear. And one time I was doing his performance review, and I said, "You're so successful with your students. What do you think is the trick there? What's your secret?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to tell you what my secret is, but if you ever tell anybody else, I'm going to have to deny it because I have a reputation to uphold." He says, "But the truth is, I love them." And here's this big 6'7" burly welding instructor. He said, "That's the truth. I love them. I just love them." So this sense of belonging, this sense of a healthy relationship with a teacher and being cared about will impact that student, encourage them to thrive for the rest of their lives. And I also I shared that one of these kids in this picture, after I left Michigan 18 years ago, my daughter stayed there, and she a couple years later she went to a store, and the cashier recognized her name and said, "Oh my gosh, are you related to Miss Linda?" And my daughter said, "That's my mom." And this girl said, my boyfriend had her for class, and he had his picture taken with her on graduation day, and he keeps that picture on his nightstand table because it reminds him that he's capable of doing more than he ever thought he could, and it just boosts him every morning when he looks at it. I thought, wow, you know what I mean? Like, we want to have an impact on these kids. We want them to remember that they can do it, and I'm glad that I could help that kid too. To realize that. That was pretty cool. And to close, before we get to the resources list, I have one last 2-minute video. This is from our sister institution, Elon University, and they went around and they asked professors and administrators and staff members and students, "What's the lowest grade you've ever received?" And they wrote it down on a little whiteboard, and I just love that they've overcome that. And it would write on the whiteboard, "I got a D in organic chemistry, but I just got into medical school," or "I got an F in finance, but I just got a job offer." So I do want to share this with you because I just think this is just precious. So just 2 minutes. Okay, Chrome tab, share audio. Lowest grade share. Okay. So thankful to Jamie. Oops. Gotta go back to the beginning.
So what am I doing? Okay, so can you just write down the lowest grade that you've ever received for me?
I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. This is my night away. This is my night away. He drinks a whiskey drink, he drinks a vodka drink. He drinks a lager drink, he drinks a cider drink. He sings the songs that remind him of the good time. He sings the songs that remind him of the best times. Good night to me, ex-door neighbor. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up.
Okay, isn't that just adorable? You know, the last one says, I don't even remember, and someday you won't either. No worries. You know, and somebody remembers their lowest grade from 7th grade, you know, or high school or whatever. But it just reminds us we all get knocked down, but we get back up again. So that is, I just adore that. Just those kids, I just love them. So this is a list of resources. Again, you'll receive the PowerPoint if you would be interested in it. There's the film, Resilience. Remember, we have it on DVD. Paper Tigers, the follow-up film, is free on Amazon Prime. There's that website. There's a book that is fabulous, The Trauma-Informed School by Jim Sporleader and Heather Forbes. We have a whole Google Drive full of resources on this topic here at CCCC because we've been researching it for a while. Let me know. I'll add you to it if you want to take a look at what's on there. And the Academic Resilience Consortium for Higher Education, they've got a What Works showcase on March 25th, 26th online. It's only $225. I just signed up for it because I didn't know about it until I went and found the website. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of more stuff. So again, want to thank you for all you do to support student success. And remember that in the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer, and that makes me happy. Isn't that beautiful? So it's 3 o'clock. Anybody wants to stay and ask a question, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, that's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your beautiful afternoon. And thank you for coming and attending this session.